gossip in the closet.
Hello and welcome back to Gossip in the Closet, episode 4. It's February. Finally, it's February. And here's hoping February hurries up and March comes, because I really just need this weather to get better. I think everybody's probably feeling the same right now. One good thing, I have got a job, so I'm finally employed. But ups and downs, ups and downs. How did Shelby do? Shelby did well. She talked about, am I gay? The question, am I gay? How do I know I'm gay? I think it was a good episode. She talked about the importance of labels. Are they that important? They are important for belonging. People getting a sense of, do they fit in? Don't they fit in? But also it's important to understand fluidity. Everything's fluid. Being gentle with yourself, no pressure. We all have this idea of wanting to identify a certain way. I absolutely agree with that. But as long as your values are in the right place, your identity will come naturally with it. So, great episode, Shelby. And moving on to Shelby. What are you doing up there? Excuse me. Because she complained, you see. She complained about me and my girlfriend being up there. So I thought, who better than to put on the wall this week? Shelby Barrett, welcome. Take a seat. I'm happy you're here. She looks beautiful up there, doesn't she? Absolutely gorgeous. So lots of ups and downs. I think the weather does affect you. Personally, it affects me. I've had a few health situations, health issues and stuff, and I've been on a journey, really, on a journey to resolve the old anxiety, because quite frankly, at this point, I've kind of had enough. I fear maybe that we're going through an anxiety epidemic. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but anxiety is probably rife right now. I mean, there's probably a few reasons for this. I'm going to go with social media being one of them. Obviously, as much as social media is beneficial, because realistically, the amount of information that we now have access to is obviously phenomenal. But at the same time, let's be honest, we are all just posting the best parts of our days, of our lives. We're all curating the best bits, and that can be difficult for people, because it can almost feel like you're being left behind, or you're not as good, or your life isn't reaching, what other people's are reaching, and that can be quite anxiety provoking. The fact that the cost of living is going up and up and up, wages are not coming with it, is also quite anxiety provoking for a lot of people. Along with the fact that just endlessly scrolling and filling our brains with all of this information is probably not good for us. The reason I say that is because I've recently listened to a podcast with this lady. She does she's got a big background in science, and her name is, what's her name? Dr. Tara Swart Bieber. So she talks a lot about neuroplasticity and really about how we kind of take in information and hold information. And she talks about how neuroplasticity can be just as bad as it can be good, depending on the consumption. So obviously it's good for us to retain new information, and it's also good for us to learn new things, because we're wiring our brains to, learn new things and stuff like that. So it can be good, obviously. But at the same time, if you compare us to back in the day, we just weren't consuming the amount of information that we are nowadays. And so we were filling our brains with this endless load of negative comparison, consumerism, which is buy this, you need to have this and have this to be cool or good or whatever it is. And that's why it can be as bad as it can be good. I'm guessing what she means by that. Also, I mean, the stress hormone cortisol, which arises from fear ultimately and shame, which can show up in various ways in the body, but particularly in stomach kind of body fat. Like it's like kind of stubborn, you know. And what that cortisol level, that cortisol is meant to be there, but not to probably the extent that most of us are feeling it, because we are constantly under stress and under pressure to perform nowadays, rather than for us to be community based and be social and to be leading with love and stuff like that. We're kind of led by economy and money and drive and what can we do to make sure businesses are rife so that we earn more money and whatever, right? The hormone that we do want is oxytocin, which comes from love and trust, which means we would take healthy risks rather than taking risks from cortisol, which would be based from fear, essentially. I hope I've actually explained that right, because to be honest with you, that was all very, very messy in my brain. Anyway, the reason why it was important for me to talk about this today was because, in all honesty, my anxiety has really been a big issue for me over the last couple of years. I don't know if everybody knows this, but I was a mental health nurse. That's what I qualified. That's what I qualified in when I was 21, and I went on to work with teenagers on a mental health ward. And as much as it was rewarding and amazing, and I loved it, you know, I loved my staff, I loved my patients, and I loved everything that, you know, all the skills that I gained from it, the character that I developed from being in certain situations that you would never find yourself in unless you took up a job like that. I also do feel that my cortisol was probably high for a long time, right? You're on a ward, 12, 14 hours a day. Sometimes you're doing night shifts, you're changing from day shifts. You're also surrounded by a lot of risky behaviours constantly. And I had a big responsibility at such a young age. So recently I thought to myself, well, it's a good time, you know, as good a time as ever right now. I'm 28, I'm coming into my late 20s, and I'm thinking to myself, what can I do? So I've decided to go on some medication. And what I'm hoping this will do is essentially, I feel like this will limit my symptoms in my body, you know, the heat that rises up in my body, the tight chest, the clammy hands, the kind of stuttering that comes with when you feel really, really anxious, right? And then I can really work on the inner work. What is it really that I need to work on in order to train my brain essentially to understand that I'm not in fight or flight constantly, and I don't need to be protecting myself with all of these kind of symptoms that tell me that I'm in danger, so that I can move forward and actually do things that ultimately are going to benefit me, right? Okay, so on to gossip of the week.
Gossip of the week.
This week I'll be talking about my hypnotherapy journey. I have just started. So I went to hypnotherapy about 2 weeks ago nearly, and it was a surreal experience, I must say. So basically, I found this lady on Counsellor's Directory, and I knew that it was going to be somewhat expensive, but she gave me a free consultation. So basically, I had a bit of a chat with her about kind of what I want to work on and why I was interested in hypnotherapy. And she told me that, listen, what hypnotherapy does is it allows our brain to process what we've been through, and it also asks our brain and asks our anxiety, or tells our anxiety really, to relax, to rewire it, to allow us to feel safe again. And that's ultimately what I wanted from the sessions. Also, she did mention that normally people need about 3 to 6 sessions. So although it is expensive, you may only need 3 to 6 sessions. And it's ideal to have like 10 to 14 days in between, so it makes it more affordable. So basically, my first session was an hour and a half, and it was an intense session. So you've got to really be ready to allow your body to really to take on the experience. You've got to be willing to be vulnerable. You really got to be willing to be vulnerable and do the work, because it's not easy. It's really not easy. But I benefited massively from the experience, and I'm going again next week because I do really feel that this is what's going to help me. Now, I've started my medication about 3 weeks ago, so it will now hopefully start to kick in. I did initially actually feel like a bit of a peak, but I will admit that my anxiety has started to creep back up again. But I do have a medication review soon, and potentially they'll up the dose, because I think I'm just on the kind of standard dose that you start on to kind of get it into your system initially. But fingers crossed, at the moment I've had no side effects, so I'm really hoping that this is the one for me. I will tell you what it is. I'm on sertraline. I have tried citalopram in the past. It really didn't agree with me, but people have different experience with different medications, and I know that from other people. So back to hypnotherapy. It was an hour and a half. I went in there, lovely lady. I think it's really important that you do pick somebody, and when you have your consultation, you feel like a warmth with them, because it makes it easier for the session. So she was amazing. I actually went to her. I think it's more beneficial, but you can do it online if it's easier, for example. Anyway, got in there, had a little bit of a chat, sat down, she reclined the seat for me, and we kind of just went straight into it, really. So what she does is she gets you into kind of a deep meditative state. And it took a while, not going to lie, my body was resisting. So she kind of does this, like, relax your head, bring your shoulders down, take deep breaths, all of this kind of stuff. And it goes on for a while, because it does take a while for you to get to that state where you're actually relaxed. What I really found helpful was walking down these steps. So I had to imagine slowly walking down these steps. And as I got down each step, I was getting closer and closer to kind of a calm and relaxation meditative state, right? And then what happened was she started to do some tapping therapy. So she was tapping, my hands, as she was kind of saying really affirmative things, a lot of affirmations and stuff like that, which I found really, really helpful. I've done tapping therapy before, but on my own, and I found that was really, really helpful. Anyway, as time went on, I was to go back in time to an age where my subconscious basically told me that at 9 years old was when the anxiety started. It was picking ages for me, right? So I just had to say the first thing that came into my head, which was 9 years old. And that was when my parents broke up. So it was something that I've never really thought that affected me. And it was shocking. I was crying quite a lot. I hadn't realised that situation really affected me. I thought I took it really well. I thought I'd made sense of it at an early age. And I've never really looked back at it and thought, oh, that's a shame. I kind of thought it made sense, right? So that was enlightening. I didn't see me at the time. So what happened was I kind of saw like old green wallpaper, and then I saw like dad, like the name dad in my head, and I kind of knew straight away where I was. I knew the feeling that I felt at that age, like I remember clearly. And I spoke to the younger me. I held her hand. I showed her the life that I've lived. I've showed her all these different things that I've done in my life. And I showed her that, like, it's going to be okay. Like, I showed her that she doesn't need to be scared anymore, that she doesn't need to torture herself for things that she may feel guilty for. And then I got to choose whether I was going to leave her back there on the sofa, or whether I was going to take her in with me, to join me and live with me. So she now lives inside me, essentially. This also happened with a younger version of me later on in the hypnotherapy session, where I was on the playground and I was getting bullied. I had to speak to the bullies. I had to call them arseholes. I had to tell them that I was better than them. I also had to show her my whole life. And I also chose to take her in with me, which was an experience, not gonna lie. And I cried the whole time, not gonna lie to you. Another part which was really, really funny was that I had to locate where I felt the anxiety, which was majority of the time in my chest. And I had to speak as if I was the anxiety. So basically, I just followed what the hypnotherapist told me. She basically said, I am the anxiety in Mia's chest. And I had to repeat it. I am the anxiety in Mia's chest. And then it says, I feel this way because, and then I would have to come up with the first word that came into my head. So it was like, I feel this anxiety because I need to protect, for example. And then like these just random words. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't. But the one thing that the hypnotherapist said to me was, you need to just say what comes to your head. It might not make sense to you, but it will definitely make sense to your subconscious. So that was what was really important. Also, I had to tell my anxiety in me that I don't need it anymore. Then I had to picture what my anxiety looked like. So I imagined it as like a big flame, and I had to slowly watch it reduce itself and come down, and then in the end I blew it out. So I found that really, really helpful, and I enjoyed that. And then what she did do is she made me open my eyes and then follow her hands side to side, just my eyes. And this is a bit of EMDR, which is kind of like eye movement therapy, which helps you process everything that you're going through. So she did that a few times throughout the session. So then when it came to the end of the session, I woke up and I came out of the hypnotherapy, and I felt a little bit dizzy, a little bit dazed. She said, have a relaxing day. Don't do anything too strenuous. You are going to feel tired. You've done a lot of work today. And she said, you're going to have to process. She said you might get some vivid dreams. I didn't actually get any vivid dreams. I was feeling quite tired, and obviously I was quite reflective because I was kind of thinking about, okay, I didn't really know that these kind of things still affected me. I didn't know that these kind of things was like the reasons, but it kind of just made a lot of sense, even when I go back to those places, why I kind of feel a certain way, kind of why I feel anxious or why I don't feel trusted in myself sometimes. Also why sometimes I feel like inferior to other people because I was bullied a lot for my race at the time. And so there's just a lot of things that I look back on, and I'm really looking forward to going again and seeing what else can come up and what else I can kind of, put to bed and process, so that I can move forward essentially. But that's my experience. I'll probably do another podcast on it another time, when I'm further along in my journey. But if anyone is interested in hypnotherapy, I would fully recommend it. I feel like we all should be going to therapy nowadays. I do think that it is important to process our emotions and to understand ourselves so that we can kind of move forward. So yeah, I think it's important to understand that everyone at some point in their life will struggle with some sort of mental health, whether that be just feeling really, really low for a period of time, whether that be anxiety. Some people don't even realize that they've got anxiety, but if you're not sleeping all night because you're overthinking, that is a form of anxiety. I think you shouldn't feel ashamed at all, and you should be able to open up to people that you love and you trust. I think it's important to understand that being in a situation where you don't feel mentally strong isn't a weakness. It's just a byproduct of the society that we live in today. And it's something that you are not the only person that is going through that. A lot of people are, and some people are masking it better than others. And I think the more you talk about it to people around you, you'll start to understand that actually a lot of us are going through the same thing. And what do they say? What's that saying? Like a problem shared is a problem halved. It's one of those things that it's the relief of speaking to other people about it and knowing that actually this is quite normal and other people have also got their own stuff going on. And bottling something up inside you and keeping all of that kind of rigidness inside you will only lead to you exploding at one point, or just becoming extremely tense and anxious and feeling very uncomfortable in your own body. And nobody wants that, right? And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that there are places that you may not want to go to in your past that may trigger you, but there might be different forms of therapy that can help you. Just coping mechanisms, stuff that you can do in the moment to calm you to calm you down, that might be better for now. And don't be scared of a medication or just speaking to your doctor. It might be something that you want to explore. It's not for everybody, of course, but it is definitely something that is an option. It's open for everybody, obviously, and it's just something that's worth looking at. So please just don't feel alone. Don't feel like you're the only one that's going through it. That's kind of why I wanted to do an episode like this today. It is important for me to talk about mental health, and it's always been something that I've been surrounded by, and it's just something that I want people to know that, you know, it doesn't matter how you identify, what your gender is, what your race is, anything like that. It can affect everyone and anyone. And even if you speak to somebody from a completely different background to you, from a completely different society to you, I'm telling you now, we all have our own stuff going on, okay? So please talk about it. Don't bottle it up. And, you know, there's Samaritans, there's Mind. You've only got to do a Google search. There's your GP, and they can refer you to maybe local services in your area. So please make sure that you look into those, and make sure, you know, you call up whatever charity they are. That's what they're there for. That's why they go to work. And a lot of people that work in these places are working there because they want to, you know, they're not getting paid loads and loads. They want to help, okay? These people have probably got experiences themselves, and they've chosen that line of work for a reason. I hope this episode has been helpful. If you've got any comments or anything, then just please write them in. And yeah, if you want to give me a message online, feel free to. If you've got anything that you want to tell us, or if you've got any dilemmas, as you might know from season 1, we are looking to do dilemmas in the future. So give us a email, gossipinthecloset97@gmail.com, and have a great week. And you'll be seeing Shelby next week, so enjoy. Bye, Shelby.
Gossip in the closet.